There we go. All right, we'll call this meeting to order. We're going to begin tonight with a brief strategic plan update by Kim, and then roll into 2 executive sessions from there.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am very excited to kind of give you guys an overview of where we are in implementation for our strategic plan update. And then toward the end, I'd like to maybe plant some seeds for a future conversation about we have accomplished some of the tasks that were in the strategic plan, and maybe with our increased capacity, what else would the City Council like us to concentrate over the next couple of years? So with that, we began with the vision statement. So, and again, this is kind of what we go back to. These are our grounding foundations of we are a vibrant, connected community with deep roots and future focus. We are a safe, welcoming destination with ample amenities for all. So I'm not sure if you guys remember, not everybody was in the strategic planning session that crafted this particular document, but kind of what are we hoping to do with the work that is outlined within this document? So we have 5 key performance areas and priorities. Financial stewardship is our first priority. We have several goals that are associated with it. I'm not going to kind of go point by point, but I will kind of go over the use tax. Right now we're kind of on hold. That's actually one of the seeds I'd like to plant right now is that something that the City Council would still like to pursue, and if so, when? So again, what I'm hoping to do with this particular presentation is kind of brag a little bit on our staff, and we have accomplished several items that were in that particular task. If you figure it was adopted in February of last calendar year, so within 1 calendar year we have accomplished quite a few things. We still have a few things to go, and we think that there's some opportunity to maybe address some of the things that were brought up but weren't prioritized within the first round of work. Number 2 is implement Parks and Recreation sales tax. That right there is in progress. It is on the April ballot. Remove ongoing expenses from the gaming fund. This is something that we have been working with the City Council over the last several months, really, and I see this as more of an ongoing item. You guys have had to have some tough choices with the water and sewer rates. That's part of this. We have had some opportunity to begin discussing long-term financial priorities. We have had some discussions on the economic development policy and maybe some opportunities with that to kind of re-examine what we are working on and making sure that fits into our long-term financial planning. Consider debt issuance. That's something that as we're going through our stormwater master plan, both our stormwater, water, and sewer master plan, we do anticipate those, coming forward at least for discussion. Number 2 is community works. Again, we have several goals that are in that. River Forest Park, we're pretty exciting that really what the action step was to bring forward a plan. The City Council, you have taken action on that, and I actually on later today's agenda, there is an agreement to begin the design for the construction documents. So that is very exciting. We have pursued 2 grants. I'll just kind of let you know I have not heard back. It's not for lack of reaching out and asking. They did, for one of the grants, they did question and ask for more follow-up information. So from my experience, that's good news. I'm hoping to be able to have good news to share, or at least some news to share. In both of those grants, we should have some kind of understanding within the coming weeks. Goal number 2, that is something to complete the Armor Road Complete Street Plan. We are 95% complete with that particular project. Continue to implement the Bike Master Plan, the East-West Concept Study, that was part of that. We do anticipate full implementation of the Bike Master Plan over several years. We do believe that will take 3 or 4, possibly 5 or 6 years to fully implement. And just like any plan, that should be revisited to make sure it's meeting the needs of our community. Just because it was set in stone 10 years, 5-10 years ago, looking out 5-10 years, that doesn't mean new development doesn't come on board, and we shouldn't pull that off the shelf and examine it to make sure it's still doing what we had hoped. Implement working with Kansas City, Missouri. As you guys have known, we are pursuing and have successfully gotten a grant to kind of look at how we can better prepare, or we can better connect Kansas City as well as Riverside. The streetcar, right now that we are waiting for the final version of that study to come forward, but as you know, that is something we have been working on over the last year. Rebuilding Howell Street Playground to meet inclusive standards. That particular project is on hold. Again, should the park sales tax move forward, I do believe that there would be an opportunity for some discussions there. Moving on to number 3, infrastructure, improve and sustain Link City. You guys had a presentation from Link City. This is all kind of woven into the strategic plan to make sure that you have an understanding of how that particular asset is being managed. We do have an audit that is in progress. We should be receiving at least some of the documents that would allow for us to get an RFP within the next coming weeks. We'll issue that. That way we have an outside party kind of conducting that audit and letting us know the condition and if there are any recommended steps within that. Number 2 is replace NKC vehicles with hybrid electric vehicles. You guys, it wasn't all that long ago that our city intern Kyle kind of had talked about what that transition plan would look like as the years come. And in the last budget, we did budget for 3 electric vehicles, as well as the police department is purchasing some hybrid patrol vehicles. As we've mentioned before, some of the challenges is everybody wants these. There's only so many of those vehicles out there in space. But we do know that the council's desire is when we can go electric. Complete the fiber technology audit. Again, goal 1 and 3 are kind of tied together. Remove crosswalks to nowhere. Staff has been working on this master list, and we added funding. Actually, the city council added funding in 2023 to complete an audit of city streets, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. That way we'll have kind of a better understanding of where these exist, what the conditions are, and what we need to move forward. And number 5 is something that we've talked about before, is the audit, which is the stormwater, sanitary, sewer, and water systems master planning process. Goal number 4 is economic development. In City Council, you have done some work on our economic development incentive policy. I am anticipating us having more conversations on that as we move forward, and I do expect that to be kind of amended along the way. This is one of the things that we have completed, which was to develop a housing repair and maintenance program. It is in year 2. One of the future work sessions is going to be the sidewalk dining and parklet permit process. That's something that we anticipate discussing with City Council in February of what that looks like now that the downtown streetscape project is over. We've had a few years of COVID recovery. What does the City Council envision those programs looking like now? Resolve high school parking, general parking. We continue to work with the school district on that particular issue. The strategy seems to be effective from the last conversations with the school district staff. Number 5 is to develop a small business grant program. That has been on hold really for staff capacity. It's something that I'd like to be able to tackle in this coming calendar year. An engaged organization, we have done quite a few of these tasks. City Council adopted the compensation study. That was goal number 1. Goal number 2 would be to review the benefits package. That's something that we did in calendar year 2022. Expand educational assistance. That's something that so far the overall pot of money that we have has not been exhausted, but we have adjusted the caps. That program is very popular with city staff, and we look at it as a way to reinvest in our city staff. Them going back to school and getting training helps benefit the organization overall, and that we do appreciate the City Council support for that particular project. And we have implemented a paid family leave policy. And again, that has really helped us with our recruitment and retention efforts. So kind of what's next? So there were a lot of things on those lists that didn't get the prioritization that, and again, here's where we're planting some seeds and we'll have some further follow-up conversation. These were some of the things on the financial stewardship that did not make the cut. They didn't get the votes necessary to move them into the action plan. The community works as well. There's quite a few items that were kind of brought up throughout discussion that that didn't make it onto the final plan. Infrastructure, here are a few more things that, again, were discussed, and all of these had merit. We do happen to have a capacity issue. So again, we really wanted through the strategic action plan process for the city council to pick, 2 to 4 items for us to concentrate on, and then it would be an ongoing dialogue. Economic development, here's another thing. I have kind of put some notes in there, complete downtown streetscape project, that's complete. A lot of these are in process. Again, just because it didn't make its final cut, the desires of the council were well heard by staff, and through the budget process, we tried to weave in items as we were able to do so. And then engaged organization. So I tried to keep that as brief as possible. I know that you guys have a lot on your to-do list today. I guess what my question, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, or if you guys wanted to have dialogue, like I said, for us is what's next?
And that's kind of what I had. Part of tonight's goal was to briefly go over that. I wanted council to see that list, so then we can also take time over the next several weeks before we meet again, if people want to make additions then. But further comments now, Councilmember Graves.
Can I just make a suggestion before we start discussions, so that we're not just jumping like all over the place? Can we just kind of hit this like, item number 1, item number 2? These are broken into like 5 subcategories. So instead of jumping, like I have a whole list of like notes and questions, but they're all over the board.
Oh,
So can we do like number 1, financial stewardship, and just focus on that as a group
That's
before
fine
we
if you
move on
just
to
want to
item
stuff, then we can
2?
do that. Yeah.
Please.
Got one for number 1?
So are you on the what's next list, or are you on
No,
what's
he's
already
on-
in the
he's
plan?
on-
Just in general, yeah, I mean, can we just focus like on financial stewardship before we go to like number 2, community works, and we can like kind of talk about this financial stewardship and then move to number 2 after that instead of jumping all over the place?
What do you got for number 1? Let's start.
I mean, I don't have much on number 1. The question I have, Kim kind of hit on. The use tax, Kim said that there's been discussions with the staff and that they're on hold. The concern I have, you brought up, we already have a tax on the April ballot for Parks and Recreation. And then at our meeting here at 7 o'clock, we're discussing another tax for recreational marijuana, which I'm going to suggest we push off until the fall, because I don't want 2 taxes on the same ballot. So that would push this, back even further. And then the other point that I just wanted to kind of make on this is, I'm not for the use tax, and I'm personally not against considering debt for major projects, with the reason being, goal number 3 right here, remove ongoing expenses from the gaming fund. The reason we're removing expenses from gaming is so that we have gaming funds available for large capital projects. And so to me, goal 4 can be avoided if we properly do goal 3. So that's my 2 cents on this.
All right, further comments? I'll just say the use tax would, it's obviously a much larger pool of money than even the 3% tax would be, because that's a small, what do we estimate, $60,000 or something maybe. You may be pushing in the million range or so for use tax, at least from the data I've been able to pull. Okay, further comments, seeing none on 1. Anything on priority number 2, community works? Councilmember Graves.
Does anybody else have any more comments? Okay, I'll go ahead. Oh, Katie, go ahead, because I'll take a break. I'll go first. All right, so I don't want to feel like I'm hogging everything. All right, so number 2, community works. If you look at on the link, I guess it's on page 20, you can kind of look at, there were things on here that had, some things that had 2 votes during our planning session that were not included on our strategic plan list that I would suggest adding. One of them was mentioned, it's just kind of being postponed right now, which is the inclusive playground. That's very important. I feel like as a parent, I've spent a lot of time at Mackin Park, and there's 2 playgrounds at Mackin Park, and they're very redundant as a parent. They're kind of the same play spaces. One's like on wood chips, one is on kind of a rubbery ground. And to me, it makes sense to pick one playground at Mackin Park and make it an inclusive playground, and then the other park just have just a play area. One of the items that I would suggest adding to our strategic plan that had 2 votes, and I think one was me and one might have been Smith, was basketball courts. I've got a son playing basketball right now. It's very bizarre that we have all these amenities in Northtown, and we have no outdoor basketball courts. I mean, we used to have one at the Baptist church that wasn't really public. And then the other thing that's was on here that I thought was interesting, I don't think it's on our strategic plan, correct me if I'm wrong, was adult/child care through People Care Services. That was not me that voted for that, but it's an interesting thought. And before I forget to bring it up, something that I would suggest is moving forward with the marijuana tax, that 3% tax on recreational marijuana. Something that I would like the council to think about is, instead of just throwing that money into a general fund, what if we actually designated those funds for something such as this? Like perhaps for, the money that we would take in for recreational marijuana, maybe help with child care, adult care, homelessness, things along those lines. And I think that's it on this one. I mean, I want to, I'm the skate park vote, and I'll go ahead and throw this out there too, that when Tina Weaver was still at the YMCA, I met with her. She was extremely interested in putting a skate park, which are very inexpensive, by the way, like under $50,000, outside of the YMCA. The city of North Kansas City owns the land that the YMCA sits on. That's our land. The YMCA is interested in us actually putting a skate park there next to the parking lot. And I've even met with the surrounding business owners who were in favor of the skate park because they would like skateboarders to have a place to go that's not at their business. Their only ask was to put a fence up in between the skate park and their business, which I don't think is a bad ask. And if you'll recall, not the director, but his name was Gary something, was here with the YMCA.
Yeah,
Gary Lynn. And when I was talking to Tina about the skate park, Tina was all about it, and she was like, I'm on board, but the person that needs to really give the approval is Gary. And I kind of floated the idea, if you can recall, when Gary was in here that day, and his eyes lit up, and he thought that was a good idea. So it only had one vote on here, which was myself, but that's something that I think you guys should maybe consider because it's inexpensive and it would improve the YMCA.
Thank you. Councilmember Stokes, did you still have? Okay, Councilmember Smith.
I wanted to circle back to the Howell Street playground. It says it's on hold until funding can be identified. I'm assuming we've kind of diverted the attention to River Forest, and we're not, okay. Have we reached out any sort of community partners on that? I just happened to meet a guy who works with BNSF, and our kids are in swim lessons together, and we talked about how they want to get involved in the community. And so he expressed playgrounds are a way that they might be interested in jumping in, tossing some funds, or getting people involved. So I think finding other ways to fund stuff like this could be a way to get this one moving forward. But I wanted to clarify, there was something I remember hearing that the one on Clay Edwards, is it Clay Edwards? What's the street that runs the other side? Yeah. Clark Ferguson, thank you. I'm thinking I spent too much time over by the hospital. The playground off of that street across from the Elizabeth A. Ryan Hall Park Center was supposed to get replaced first. Is that still a thing, or was that just a rumor? Okay, that's what I had heard, and I haven't heard anything more since.
I could ask the Parks Director.
Okay.
Because again, since that's underneath their purview, it's
Gotcha.
not really.
Say that again?
It was discussed in the Parks Board meeting that they are working to replace the crack slide.
Oh, okay, so that was it. All right, so that's the one on Clark Ferguson. Okay. Yep.
Councilmember Toll.
I just have a procedural question. The way that I read this item was that we were going to get an update on how things were, maybe ask questions about where we are now with current things so that we could have a future discussion of what to put on next.
Yeah, we're going to come back again for another meeting until what actually put on next.
Okay.
Yeah, so today, she gave the update. Now we're kind of asking questions, but of course, if people want to throw in commentary on the future stuff, that's probably fine as well. But the goal is to actually come back at the next meeting and actually more formally do that. Is
Is that whole list on the attachment?
Yes,
Attachment?
it's-
Okay.
well, at least the ones we voted on, But also, you could always add additional things to that as well. It's a very open process, I would say, from here. We're not, these are not set in stone. The goals do not have to come from here to be added to this, I would say. You know, but in the end, it will require some sort of council consensus as we discuss it on what gets added. Because a lot of priorities could reshuffle either over time, just naturally, or, you know, as certain projects get done and we see other needs, so.
I guess the concern at this point is procedural. We have 2 executive sessions to get
Yeah.
through before the 7
Got it,
o'clock
yeah.
hour. If we keep on this path.
Timing-wise, I think we'll keep going, we'll keep
Okay,
going.
all right.
I got to cut off. I got to cut off here at some point. There we are, infrastructure. This is where we are. Go ahead, now there we go. Infrastructure. Any updates, questions, comments on infrastructure? Going. Saper. Okay. Economic development. Number 4, economic development. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to hear, okay, so Saper and I have a lot of experience with the high school parking issue. You had some commentary there about how you're working on it with the school district. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Well, this is from the meetings that the city council has had with the school board. Do you remember those joint meetings where Councilmember Saper's nodding? That's where that dialogue is happening, as well as city staff.
When was that?
It was in the last decade.
It's
Been 2.
There was a meeting scheduled for the summer of 2021 with the school regarding parking, and it was canceled. And it was never resumed, as far as I'm aware. But I've met with them many times.
I'm talking about the ones where the governing body has met with, at the high school.
I think it was.
Okay, so my question is, are you considering it resolved?
No, it's never going to be resolved because you always have a new class of incoming students. So it's going to be a perennial mix. I don't think that there's ever going to be a permanent 100% everybody satisfied fix ever. I think it is a work in progress.
I would like to have a meeting we were supposed to have in the summer of 2021 with like a work session or some type of meeting with the principal and the school board or superintendent or whomever. But I would like to have an actual meeting because I do actually think it can be resolved. And this is something that the city, you know, in certain wards, in certain streets, this is actually the number 1 issue, believe it or not. And it's not resolved. It's nowhere near resolved. And fortunately, we're getting I've heard that there's going to be a new superintendent because I don't think the current one is interested in resolving the issue, frankly, from the conversations I've had with them. And then shifting gears, let me see here. Is this where we're affordable housing? Is that on economic development? So I guess my question regarding affordable, on housing, what are we doing? Here it is. Incent redevelopment, industrial areas, affordable housing in progress. So what can we do to increase affordable housing? Because from my perspective, North Kansas City is becoming less affordable by the day. And we're also doing absolutely nothing toward homeownership, which is in our master plan for the city. We're supposed to be encouraging homeownership, and that's nowhere on our strategic plan. And the entire time I've been here on council, we've done absolutely nothing to encourage homeownership.
Shu would probably speak better to this, but without having land, in order to focus on home ownership, would we not have to purchase land and then, I don't know how we would do it with private property. We would have to purchase land in order to make that happen, or is there another way around it, Shu?
Calling her down from the crowd here. What are we?
We
So-
did have land, and it was used for expensive apartments, which is not affordable housing, and it's not encouraging homeownership. So that's kind of,
Is there something? There you go, Councilmember.
But I mean, the gallery lofts, gallery apartments, those had affordable units in there.
Yeah.
Those are all taken. And I know we like to think that the apartments being built took away all the housing opportunities, but let's be real, like how many houses could have gone where that many people were able to be put into? And yeah, there are affordable units that are being made in these apartment complexes. Now, could those eventually go into ownership opportunities down the road? I don't know. But the realistic map of looking at the land that was available versus the amount of houses that could be built there, maybe like 2 or 3, maybe 4 houses. Like, I mean, in certain cases, it just didn't make sense to me that it's like, that's what we should have built there is some affordable houses.
Councilmember Toll.
One of the things we talked about before but have never actually done is tying our incentives to things that make it affordable. I mean, we've talked about it, but we don't have anything on the books. That if you get certain incentives from the city, you have to make a certain number or percentage of your apartments affordable.
So those are some of the things that I kind of had mentioned. We would like to have some further conversations about the city's economic development policy. That is easily some of the things that we would like to further discuss. So the economic development policy in the past has been seen where we got to get all of the amendments perfected at once or we can't touch it. We would love, like we have done most recently, I mean, just a couple meetings ago, where we're tackling one thing and we're amending it and making it more of a living document. So Councilmember Graves, one of the things we would like to do over the next several months is have that discussion of, are we tying our incentives to some form of affordable living component? We have kind of narrowed the ceiling and floor to make sure that the people who are living here, we are not inadvertently hurting our school district friends by by cutting into what they need to be able to make sure that they can afford the services that the community would like of them as well. One of the things we would like to do is have a discussion of what does affordable housing look like in an incentivized project? And where does the city council like that to be? So we would like to have that discussion. We are planning to have that at a future work session.
So there's going to be several of those layered on, because as she said, it's going to be an ongoing conversation. We lowered the ceiling. Now we got to start building a little bit more of the scorecard of how you could, if you went over and above, then you've got to be doing more things to meet, goals that you're seeing in here and things that you're mentioning as well. So that's going to be part of the ongoing economic incentive conversations. Further comments on this section? What do we got next? What's next? Engaged organization. Or am I skipping ahead? There we go. Question, comments on engaged organization. All right, with no more questions on that. That's the last section, right? Okay, with that, at a future, I believe possibly the next one. I just looked at this an hour ago. I should know. Maybe at the next work session or next regular session. We'll figure that out. At the next council date, we'll discuss new priorities and additional things we want added on the list. So definitely take a look at what we've checked off, what's been submitted, and if there's anything additional to add, we'll discuss that then as well. So that'll wrap up this item. And now we have 2 executive sessions.
Ready?
Crystal, please.
Consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
Move to approve?
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes. Yes.
Consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session as requested by the city councilor to be held on this date on a litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0211.
Move to approve?
Call the roll, please.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
All right. The video, I believe, will cut off. I'm not sure what Stephen's intent was here, but we will be back at 7. Or is he already around the corner? Okay, well, we'll be back at 7 for the regular session. Yeah, that corner.